Okay.
Love editing.
That'll be fun.
We're going to talk today about my belly's so full. It's interrupting with like this working. All right. We're going to talk today about child's pose, just a few different variations and things you can do to make it a little bit more comfortable. Child's pose typically is big toes touching, knees wide, hips back to the heels, arms walk forward, forehead to the ground, chest in between the thighs. That's going to be child's pose at your most simplest form. Now, if you have really tight ankles or across the tops of the feet, what's nice is to take your blanket, roll it up a few notches, bring it back, lay the ankles over it, and then have the big toes touch and the knees wide. Hips back to the heels, forehead towards the ground. This just gives you a little bit more support so you can have some more bend in the top of the foot. It's also really great if you've recently had an ankle injury and you can't find that full extension through the top of the foot. Now, if you find that the tightness is through the compression in the knees or extension through the front side of the knee, you take that same folded blanket and you nuzzle it up right into the back of the knee, and then you start to sit back. And you can double up on this if you have tight ankles and tight knees, and you can have a blanket underneath and behind. And this allows the hips to be a little bit more lifted, giving more space through the mid to low back rather than just through the low back. Wow. Edit that out. Hummer's butt. Excellent. Now, instead of using a blanket, sometimes bringing the knees all the way together to touch and sitting the hips back towards the heels and bringing the forehead to the floor is an option. This is going to also give you more rounding all the way through the upper back down to the lower back. And what's nice about this version, because the legs are narrow, is you can bring the arms down alongside the body. Of course, your forehead will be on the floor, not head turned to the side, unless you're looking for some relief in the sides of the neck, in which case you can alternate turning the head in opposite directions. But this gives you a little bit more of a turtle-like quality. You can kind of just nuzzle in, feel the compression of the belly. It's a little bit more nurturing and warming too. Taking the knees wider gives more space through the inner thighs and up into the groin, and allows the pelvis to tip forward between the thighs, finding still extension in the low back, but you're also finding a little bit more length rather than just rounding as this would do. As far as arms go in child's pose, what I like to cue in my classes is keeping the forearms to the ground, palms about as wide as you would have them for downward facing dog, about as wide as your mat, really relaxing through the shoulders and the upper body. If you want a little bit more active child's pose, you can come up onto the fingertips, and then you can walk the hands further forward, and the chest can start to drop down more towards the ground, forehead coming to the floor or towards the floor, and that'll give you a good stretch across the front top side of the chest. So even for child's pose, for such a simple pose, for such a transitional pose in your practice, there are a lot of different options to it. Really finding one that's the most comfortable for you to make your practice a little bit more efficient and fun and comfortable in the areas that you can. Any questions, go ahead and let us know. Namaste.